So hello everyone, my name is Wolfgang Hankeln and I'm sitting here with Melody Clark and we will talk about the GSC14 today. So first of all, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Melody Clark. I work for the British Antarctic Survey. I'm a project leader and I've been involved in genomics for quite some time since the early genome project. So I was involved in the pufferfish genome project. And when I moved to BAS, what I'm really interested in is looking at stress responses of marine invertebrates, so the size of things you can see like limpets and starfish, so not microbes at all, unlike most of the GOES.
So, and why did you attend this meeting? What were the topics that were particularly interesting?
I think it's a really interesting network because we have long-term sampling. We don't leverage that effectively using genomic techniques as yet, and I know certain of the GOES do, and it's really interesting just to be able to see how people access their data, what sort of techniques they use, and think about how we may be able to adopt some of those techniques. But also, we get the shortcuts as well, so they've done all the hard work and worked out all the problems, and they can just say, well, you do this, and they go, fantastic.
So from your point of view and your words, what is a genomic observatory?
I guess the original definition was of a site which is rich in biodiversity, which has long-term data sets that you want to at least use or have the aspiration to use genomic technologies to exploit. But I know certainly there are some groups here that are starting to develop long-term data sets, and I don't think they should be excluded. I mean, I think it's just a research site with some, where you can exploit the ecological data and make connections across disciplines, so from genomics right through to the ecology.
From your point of view, what's the benefit in taking part in the GOES initiative?
It really, for me, is I don't know anything about microbial stuff, and a lot of these guys are microbial. We could build that in and we can develop that at our site, and it really gives me some shortcuts, and it also gives me some very good contacts for, who to see for sequencing, who to talk to about bioinformatic analysis, what are the best protocols. So it really is about kind of trying to understand what we can do at our go with microbes, but also getting shortcuts is how to do it.
Can you talk a little bit about your genomic observatory? I heard you are working in Antarctica.
Yes, Rothera is about halfway up the Antarctic Peninsula. It's a region where global climate change is happening fastest. One of the regions where global climate change is happening fastest. It's a marine site on an island, but we also have terrestrial sites, so we have small islands that we can access. We have an all year round dive team, we have an aquarium, we have labs. So we go there, we can do sampling. We're really interested in how animals adapt to living in life in the very cold environment, but also how they adapt in terms of climate change. And that's all types of animals. So we have other sites around the Antarctic that are interested in the kind of charismatic megafauna, they're called, like the birds and the seals, just not close to us, which is a bit of a shame.
And what are the hopes and expectations in terms of data analysis now working in this initiative and exchanging data with other GOES sites?
I think we've got a great opportunity to work between sites because you can look at your site and look at site-specific problems, which is great, but you get a greater power if you take the comparative approach. And so we can look at the differences between tropical, which also, the animals there also live within very narrow temperature ranges. It's warm, but very narrow temperature ranges. In the Antarctic, it's cold, narrow temperature ranges. We can look at the differences, and there's a real power in the comparative approach. And if we both use the same protocols, it's actually much easier to analyse the data between the two and get meaningful results between the two.
There are already existing infrastructures out there. There are a lot of long-term ecological research stations. And how do you think this should be integrated, this GOES initiative, into already existing infrastructures?
Well, I think you've got the infrastructures, you've got the personnel, and I think largely it's a kind of network of shared experiences and to discuss things and approaches. So it's really trying to get the people together from the different infrastructures to talk about, how we can use shared approaches and tackle problems and tackle ecological issues in the same way.
So it's a global and a joint effort. Compiling this data set, what will be the questions that you can answer now with this integrated, consistent data set that you are creating with the GOES initiative?
I think it depends. There are obviously very site-specific questions, and I think it depends on the question you want to ask. unless you do the same thing across all the sites, which is actually going to be difficult because there isn't any funding for that at the moment. You may be quite limited, but things like Ocean Sampling Day, you can ask, is everything everywhere? Do you have the same microbes all over the place? What is the effect of day length? Things like that. So you can tackle very big questions. As regards between the different sites, you can look at the effects of climate change across sites. Is climate change happening at the same rate? And you can do that because if you have sites where you have long-term data sets and repeated sampling, in 10 years' time we can look at our data set now, and maybe the guys in Maria couldn't say, well, there's a difference. So it's happening, but maybe in the Antarctic it's happening faster. So
coming now to the OSD, do you think the questions that you already mentioned, like who is out there and how many of what kind, do you think this can be then answered already with this first data set that you're going to compile on the OSD?
I suspect, because biology is always complicated, and when you start to ask questions, it always kind of comes back and poses another question. I think it's a very good first start, and it'll give us a basis on which to look at and then think about what maybe the next step is. Because biology is never simple, and you always set out and think, yeah, I'm going to solve this, and this is going to be a great experiment, and it always goes off somewhere slightly differently. So I think it'd be a great first data set, and we just have to see what we get, to be honest, because you can never predict.
So what do you hope, or what do you gain from participation also in the OSD at first?
Really, it's the connections and the collaborations and the shared knowledge, and meeting a great set of people and understanding, what people are doing at different sites and how you can, understanding what they're doing. Maybe we could do something similar, with at ours.
Would you agree that, this is also a good step towards monitoring human impact on the ecosystem?
Definitely. I mean, it will help. I mean, it's already happening with the long-term monitoring at all of the sites. So they are already monitoring human impacts. The use of genomic technologies will help us get added information from that and give us an added layer of detail.
Okay, so is there anything you would like to add? Some topics that are maybe left out?
I don't think so.
Good. Then thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you.